You will never be able to stay alone at home after you hear this story. It was a cold, misty evening when I first heard of the Hollow Hollow, a house so far removed from the village that it didn't even have a name, just a whisper of its existence on the lips of those who dared speak of it. The village of Green Hollow was small, its streets narrow and winding, hidden deep in a valley where the fog never seemed to lift. The villagers were a quiet lot, living simple lives in cottages, with thatched roofs, and gardens blooming with wildflowers. But there was one house, one place, where no one dared go. The house was at the edge of the village, standing alone amidst a thick forest. It was an old, rotting structure that had been abandoned for years. The paint was peeling from the walls, the windows broken, the door barely hanging on its hinges. No one remembered who had lived there, and the only sounds that ever came from its direction were the eerie creaks of wood in the wind, like whispers of the past trying to claw their way out. But one day, a woman and her child arrived. They came in the dead of winter, when the roads were thick with ice and snow. The villagers spoke in hushed tones about the new residents, Sarah and her daughter Lily. Sarah had come from the city, bringing her young daughter to this desolate place for reasons that were never quite clear. Some said she was running from something, a troubled past she hoped to leave behind. Others whispered that she was simply mad, drawn to the house as if by some dark, irresistible force. The first few days were peaceful. Sarah and Lily kept to themselves, staying inside, hiding from the cold. But soon, something changed. Strange things began to happen. It started with the noises. At night, the villagers would hear the sound of footsteps in the snow, the soft crunch of boots against the frozen ground. But when they went to check, no one was there. Just empty, quiet air. Then came the whispers. Low murmurs, like a voice that couldn't be fully understood, slipping through the cracks of the old walls of the house. It was as if the house itself was trying to speak, calling out to them. Sarah grew pale, and Lily became quieter with each passing day. Her once bright eyes dulled, her smile fading into something unsettling. She would sit by the window for hours, staring out into the dark forest, as if she could see something, or someone, waiting for her there. No one in the village dared approach them. The house, they said, was cursed. Some said it was built on sacred ground, others believed it had once been the home of a family that had gone mad. But whatever it was, the villagers avoided it, like a sickness that might spread if they got too close. But the day came when Sarah could no longer deny the truth. It was the day Lily disappeared. The snow had fallen heavily the night before, and the morning was shrouded in thick fog. The villagers had gone about their daily routines, ignoring the house at the edge of town, just as they had for years, but that day was different. There was a sense of unease in the air, something heavy, like the atmosphere before a storm. When Sarah came to the village that afternoon, her eyes were wild with fear. She was frantic, her face pale and streaked with tears. She spoke of Lily, how she had gone outside to play in the snow the previous evening, and when Sarah went to check on her in the morning, she was gone. At first, the villagers thought it was just a child's game gone wrong. Perhaps Lily had wandered off, lost in the snow. But when they searched the area around the house, they found nothing. No footprints in the snow. No sign of a struggle. Just silence. Sarah pleaded with the villagers to help her, but no one dared. They spoke of things they didn't want to say aloud. The house was cursed, they said. No one who had gone in had ever come back out the same. And the walls, they whispered, were watching, waiting for something. But Sarah didn't listen. She begged, she screamed. She ran into the forest, calling Lily's name, her voice echoing through the trees. The villagers watched from their windows, too afraid to follow, too afraid to help. Hours passed. Then, just as the sun was setting, Sarah returned, but she was different. Her eyes were wide with terror, her face gaunt and pale. She staggered into the village, and the moment she entered the center square, she collapsed. "She's gone," Sarah whispered, her voice hoarse. "Lily. She's gone." The villagers rushed to her side, but Sarah was not the same. Her mind had snapped, her sanity unraveling in front of their eyes. She spoke of things no one could understand, of shadows that moved on their own, of voices in the walls, of eyes watching her every move. And then, she fell silent, her body still. The villagers didn't know what to do. They buried Sarah in the snow, placing a simple cross made of wood at the foot of the house. But the forest was still, too still, and the whispers, oh, the whispers, grew louder, like a distant chant carried by the wind. The house was abandoned once again, its doors locked and its windows dark. The villagers returned to their lives, trying to forget what had happened, but the shadow of that cursed house never truly left them. The whispers lingered in their minds, the sight of Sarah's broken spirit haunting their every thought. But what of Lily? What happened to the child? The years passed, and the house fell into even further ruin. The trees around it grew taller, their roots digging deeper into the earth, as if trying to swallow the house whole. The fog thickened, obscuring any view of the place. The villagers rarely spoke of it anymore, some didn't even believe the stories. But on nights when the wind howled through the village, carrying strange echoes with it, those who listened carefully could still hear the soft whispering, like a lullaby. One day, years later, a traveler came to Green Hollow. He was a man of science, seeking the truth behind the strange occurrences that had plagued the village for decades. The people warned him, as they had warned everyone else, but he was insistent. He sought out the house on Maple Hill, armed with his tools and equipment, eager to uncover its mysteries. When he returned to the village, his eyes were wide, and his mouth moved in silent horror. He said nothing as he walked straight through the village, never stopping to speak to a single soul. The next day, he was found at the edge of the forest, staring blankly into the trees. His face was frozen in an expression of absolute terror, his eyes wide and unblinking. And in his hand was a small, old photograph, a picture of a woman and child. It was Sarah and Lily. But there was something else. In the reflection of the photograph, in the shadows behind them, there was a figure. A figure with hollow eyes. A figure that shouldn't have been there. The villagers never saw the traveler again. The house remained standing, decaying in the fog, its whispers louder now than ever before. And sometimes, just as the sun sets, when the fog rolls in thick, you can still hear it. A child's voice, a woman's voice, and the faint echo of a door creaking open. They're waiting for someone new, waiting for someone to come. And they always get what they want. Always.